Molly, do you say your last name, Molly? Rouch?
Yep.
Rouch, okay. And there's the nice chart. Coal, heating oil, propane.
Let me show you what it shows, Travis.
Yeah. Hi, thank you for coming.
We're so happy to be here.
Thank you. Okay, good morning. It's a beautiful morning here in Washington, D.C., known in Brooklyn as Washington Duck Capital. Does anyone ever know that? It's a joke. I'll tell you the joke. I will not tell all of you the joke. I will spare you. Anyway, I want to thank my three great colleagues who have shown such leadership on this issue, Senators Heinrich, King, and Markey, for joining us. Each one of them has been a champion against fighting against climate change on many, many fronts. But particularly today, we're talking about methane pollution. They are our leaders. And I also want to thank the many organizations and individuals who have made their voices heard loudly and clearly on this issue. Molly Rouch, right here, of Mom's Clean Air Force, is just one of the groups that's worked with us. So today we're going to cast one of the most important votes, not only that this Congress has cast, but has been cast in the last decade in terms of our fight against global warming. This is a very big deal. And the fact that we are using our first CRA on the methane rule shows how important it is and shows how the difference in having a Democratic majority when it comes to climate change, because we are able to do these things. Excuse me. Come on, come on.
World's last remaining flip phone.
No CRAs against flip phones, Angus. It's really vital. Methane, as my colleagues will tell you, is one of the most poisonous things we can put in our atmosphere. And the amazing thing is, if used to the right purpose, it can actually be a benefit. People can capture the methane, prevent it from going into the atmosphere, and use it for other good purposes. And that's why even some of the more progressive parts of the oil and gas industry are for this. So it's amazing that so many in the Senate on the other side of the aisle are still against it. It's not every day that the Senate can come together in a bipartisan way that draws the cheers of the environmental community and earns the support of the industry. But that has happened today. And as I said, it's one of the most significant things we have done. It is one of the first things we have done to fight global warming. It will certainly not be the last. There will be a long chain of activities that this Democratic caucus pursues as we fight the menace of global warming, which is getting closer and closer. The danger is getting closer and closer and closer. We all know that methane is a far more potent chemical than carbon dioxide. It warms the atmosphere 86 times more than the total. And knowing how harmful this pollutant is, the Trump administration, just in obeisance to the extremists in the oil and gas industry, got rid of the rule that President Obama put in. And it was a very dark day for our globe when Trump did that. Oftentimes Trump did things just because Obama did it one way, he had to do it the other way. My guess is he probably didn't even understand what this was all about. But the fact that we have the Congressional Review Act means that we can undo that damage and undo it quickly. And once we act, it has real effect, because unlike carbon dioxide, methane does not stay in the atmosphere for a very long period of time, at least relative to carbon dioxide. The bottom line is, under President Biden's leadership, this Congress is going to move forward on many climate issues. Tonight, when he talks about Build Back Better, that is one of the strongest proposals on climate change that this country has ever seen. We will do everything we can to enact it, and we will enact it in a very green way. That is essential. So today, the Senate is going to take the first, just the first, of many important steps to achieve the ambitious goal that Joe Biden has set, and that is to cut greenhouse gas emissions in half by 2030. This is the first step. There will be many more to achieve that goal. Senator Heinrich.
Thank you, Leader Schumer. You know, the bad news is that we have a huge methane leakage problem. As the leader said, methane is dramatically more powerful as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. 86 times more potent in the atmosphere, and we're leaking a lot of it. We leak it at wellbores, we leak it in transportation, we vent it, we flare it. So much so that a few years ago, NASA actually could see the methane plume sitting over the northwest portion of my state from these activities. The good news is we don't have to do this. We have the solutions to this right now. The industry standards actually work, and we can implement this in a way that will dramatically make a down payment on what we need to do to keep the climate below 1.5 degrees Celsius. So this is not something where we need some fancy technology from 20 years from now. The solution is here now. We know how to plug these leaks. We know how to not flare and not vent. We know how to make sure that our pipelines aren't leaking. And this is a huge public health issue. Much of this leakage happens right in the middle of communities. Communities in my state that don't want to be breathing benzene and the other chemicals that come along with natural gas leakage. So this is a down payment on the action that we will take to restore the leadership of the United States of America, and with President Biden, begin to lead the world once again in addressing climate change. And my hope is that we're going to see a big bipartisan vote. We will see what support we have from the other side. Obviously, we have some now, but this should be a no-brainer. This should be a no-brainer for every single member of the United States Senate.
Senator King. Markey.
Thank you, Leader Schumer, Senator Heinrich, Senator King, and to Molly Rouch and all of the moms of Clean Air Force who have joined us here today. Thank you for representing millions of moms and children across our country here today. It's going to be a great day for us to use the CRA to cut methane and to fight for this dramatic change in reduction of pollutants that go into our atmosphere. The methane problem is not a new one. It has quickly and drastically warmed our planet since the Industrial Revolution. And today it accounts for 1/4 of global warming. We have no time to lose. In the short term, methane is more than 80 times more powerful and damaging than its better known cousin called CO2. While we've made more progress reducing our carbon dioxide levels, methane pollution has continued to surge in the background. Even last year, with more cars off the road and many stuck in their homes, methane pollution levels kept rising even in 2020. If we're going to put out the fire of our climate crisis, we have to stop lighting the matches of methane pollution. And while our goals may be transformational, we already have the technology and the statutory authority to meet them. First, we have to enforce the Clean Air Act instead of undermining it. Second, we have to push our emissions down further and faster than ever before. And third, we can leverage technology that detects and repairs leaks, technologies, by the way, that already exist today. We can also repair the immense damage done by Donald Trump. His decision to roll back common sense methane rules shows just how little he cared about people or the planet. Cutting methane emissions will help curb immediate global warming, save lives, prevent costly trips to emergency rooms, and show the world that the United States is ready once again to be the leader in combating the climate crisis. The fossil fuel industry knows it has the potential to cut its methane emissions at little or no cost. We need strong rules on the books to make them do that. By passing this methane rule CRA, we can make real progress for our climate and for public health. Methane pollutes our land, our lungs, and our lives. Today's vote will be a decisive victory for our planet. Thank you very much. Back to you, Senator King.
I think it might be helpful to explain the context of what this vote is. What we're voting on today is the legislative equivalent of a double negative. This is the repeal of a repeal. It leaves the original rule in place that regulated methane that was in place until several years ago when, or a year ago, when it was repealed by the Trump administration. So what this action today technically is a repeal of the repeal, which leaves the original rule in place.
A repeal of the repeal with great appeal.
No. Leave it to my friend the poet over here. Jeez. I have to put up with this quite regularly, you should know. Regulating methane is the low-hanging fruit of climate action. It is the simplest, most straightforward thing that we can do immediately to make a significant change in terms of greenhouse gases, both here and abroad. If we lead, if we do this, then it enables other countries to do this. If we don't do it, other countries are going to say, why should we do it? You're not doing it. So that's what's so important about the vote today, is it's not only a vote that will affect us here in this country, but I believe it will have ripples and repercussions around the world. Let me make an important point about here. Why don't we just?
Yeah, bring it over. We'll hold it. I'll hold it.
Natural gas has great advantages over coal and oil in terms of emissions per pound or per cubic foot, or however you want to measure it. This is the comparison: natural gas, propane, heating oil, and coal. The problem is, if you include the methane releases, here's where natural gas comes out. It loses its environmental advantage. And that's why many of the major companies that deal in natural gas and oil want to see this regulation put back in place, because they're going to lose their bragging rights, if you will, in terms of improvement of air quality if this is the level, which is propane plus methane, which comes from drilling and transportation. So this is important. In fact, no, I can't say it any better than this. Regulating methane emissions from oil and gas production is the right thing to do for our climate and the air quality of communities across the country. It's widely acknowledged that methane is a highly potent greenhouse gas with global warming potential 80 times greater than CO2. That's 80 times, not 80% greater, 80 times greater. Beyond the long-term impacts related to climate change, methane emissions have implications for local air quality. We owe it to the communities where we live and work to reduce these emissions. That's not Angus King, that's Shell Oil. That's a direct quote from a press release from Shell Oil. They understand this. And they and many of the other major oil and gas companies are supporting this action today. So I'm with Martin Heinrich and Chuck and Brother Markey that this is a tremendous opportunity. It should get a tremendous vote. This isn't industry versus regulation. This is common sense in favor of our ability to save the planet. It really comes down to that. I believe this is the most important environmental vote of this decade. And it is going to really have almost an immediate impact, I mean within the next year, on the global warming potential for the gases that are being released into the atmosphere. So I'm looking forward to the vote this afternoon, and I believe that this is one that, as Martin said, this should be easy. This is an easy and important step for this country and indeed for the world. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have Molly Rouch of the Moms Clean Air Force. We've had literally hundreds of groups that are behind what we're doing, that range the spectrum from our green environmental groups all the way to some of the people in the oil and gas industry. Everyone agrees this is the right thing to do, and Molly signifies the grassroots support that this proposal has.
Thank you. Thank you, and good morning. I'm Molly Rouch, the Public Health Policy Director for Moms Clean Air Force. We're an organization of over 1 million moms and dads fighting to protect clean air for the sake of our children's health. Today is a critical day in the Senate. The methane CRA resolution is a major step toward reinstating vital clean air and climate protections. So make no mistake, this vote is a vote on our children's health and a vote on their future. As you've heard, methane is a potent climate pollutant. It's accelerating climate change, and it's leaking from the oil and gas sector at the rate of more than 16 million metric tons each year, the equivalent of the climate pollution from all of the nation's passenger vehicles in a year. Climate change is a health crisis, not in some distant future, but right now, when extreme storms can trigger massive power outages, when smoke from record-breaking wildfires can poison the air of millions across the West, when severe heat waves regularly threaten public health, preying especially on older adults, pregnant women, and low-income communities, we need methane standards back in place right now to reduce dangerous climate pollution. But this isn't just a climate problem. Pollution emitted alongside methane, such as benzene, increases the risk of cancer, immune system damage, neurological and developmental problems, low birth weight babies, preterm birth, and birth defects. 1 in 3 people in the US lives in a county with oil and gas production, and over 17 million live within 1 mile of an active oil or gas well. Methane and other oil and gas pollutants also contribute to ground level ozone, or smog. Smog is a lung irritant. It triggers asthma attacks, and it increases lung infections. The methane CRA will help us achieve common sense pollution protections to reduce these health risks. And these risks are not equally distributed. Black, Indigenous, and Latino communities are disproportionately exposed to dirty air, including harmful pollution from oil and gas. We need environmental justice. We need climate justice. Every child has the right to breathe clean air and the right to a stable climate. In my work with moms, I bear witness every day to the real-life human health impacts of pollution from the oil and gas industry in communities across the country. For example, Patrice Tomchik's children go to school in southwestern Pennsylvania, near gas wells located about a half mile from their campus. Patrice worries about the harmful air pollutants her children may be exposed to from these wells when they attend school or play outdoor sports, especially for her youngest son, who is a cancer survivor and immune compromised. Parents can't control the air our children breathe. We depend on our leaders in Congress to do their jobs and protect our children. Today, the Senate has the chance to do just that. Moms and dads want climate action, and we want our leaders to stand up for our children's health. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
So one of the things that the leader touched just really briefly on, that is the reason why this is such a powerful action, is because methane, unlike CO2, will not stay in the atmosphere for centuries. Methane will break down over the course of a decade or so. So if we take this action today, we take a huge amount of the warming activity in the atmosphere out of the atmosphere in the short term and buy ourselves time to fix the CO2 problem that we have to fix as well. So even though we're not putting nearly as much methane in the atmosphere as we're putting CO2, this really gives us a chance to take an action that is a huge part of the solution to how we keep everything below 1.5 degrees C.
Point well taken. Thank you, Martin. Questions on this subject first? Yes.
Just in general on gas, does the
Well, look, we want to get to zero emissions. 2030 is cutting them in half, but zero. Some plans 2035, some 2040, some 2045. And we have to use every way we can to get to that level. Any other questions on this subject? Okay, we'll take a few off topics. Yes.
Leader, talk to me
Story
about
of my
how
life.
President Biden is going to sell the American family plan to the American people tonight.
Well, I don't think he has to sell it to the American people. The parts of that plan are overwhelmingly popular. Pre-K is overwhelmingly popular. Paid family and sick leave is overwhelmingly popular. Helping child care is overwhelmingly popular. Free community college is overwhelmingly popular. What the public has to do and we have to do is sell it to some of our Republican colleagues. If you ask the Republican voter, there is far more support for these provisions, like the same with the ARP, than there is among the Republican senators. And that's a dichotomy we hope will change.
Senator Schumer,
Yes.
have you made the decision yet on whether you're going to move ahead with revising the 2021 budget resolution, and what's your timeline for doing that, given the American Jobs Plan is waiting?
Well, we have lots of other things to do. The budget resolution has to move forward, and we're going to have to do many things at once. I would remind you that people were skeptical when we took office, our majority, that we could get three big things done at once: cabinet, impeachment, ARP. We did, and we're going to do a lot of more things. We're going to do many more things together. Yes.
I couldn't help but notice your cancel student debt mask.
I'm glad you couldn't help but notice.
I was curious if you're disappointed that canceling student debt wasn't something Biden considered as part of his American Families Plan, and how confident you are that Biden might still take action.
Well,
on that.
we have been talking to them regularly. Some of the major barriers that they had said bothered them. One, that they didn't have legal authority. They clearly do. Second, that it wasn't that if you forgave student debt, it would be taxed. So if you forgave $20,000 in student debt and you were at a 25% tax rate, you'd still pay $5,000 in taxes. We undid that in the ARP, and we're continuing to press. And there's more and more support everywhere I go. People ask for it, and we're going to keep pressing till we get it done. Yes. Well, wait. Is someone who hasn't asked one yet? Yes.
So it sounds
I should have called on you. No.
I did mention your speech, by the way. You are holding out reconciliation then as an option for passing this if you're going to move forward on the budget, like you just said. Is that accurate?
Yeah, no decisions have been made, but of course reconciliation is an option. We hope to do as much as we can in a bipartisan way. The water bill today will be bipartisan. I believe the American Competitive Act, which will be marked up a week from Wednesday, is bipartisan. There are other things that can be bipartisan, but obviously we believe a bill has to have strong climate provisions. We believe that the tax code and some of the inequities that the Trump tax cut costs that caused have to be changed. So we will look for bipartisanship wherever we can, but the number one goal is a big, bold plan along the lines of what President Biden has proposed. Okay, last one.
You had mentioned, sir, again, the American Jobs Plan. If it's not sold to the Republicans, will you do it without them?
We have no choice but to move forward. We much prefer to do it with them. Let's hope they'll do it with us. But big, bold action is our number one goal, number one. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Thanks again.
Great, thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you for being here.